Hello all together, my name is Uwe Heinert and welcome to our first video, Drawing Basics Unit 1. Here are the aims we want to reach in this unit. At first, learn to draw the proportions of the human head and face. Then, learn some necessary Adobe Photoshop functions. You know we want to combine everything. And the last part is we want to prepare the next units, portrait drawing and combining the portrait with AI. Okay, let us start. No wondering about the appearance of my Photoshop. This is a recent version, but I have my own special settings. That's why it seems so old-fashioned. Okay, at first I press the short key combination Control Shift N to create a new layer. And I call this layer Guides and mark this layer with a color, in this case, a blue. Here you can see in my layer window, we have this new transparent layer now. Then I go to the setting of the fore and background color. When we draw and paint in Photoshop, we use this in this way. We go into the foreground color with one click, left mouse key, and I prefer, because of my far away past of a printer, to use often numbers directly. And here I use for our blue pen 50, 30, 20, and 0. And I press the Enter key for say OK, for saying OK. And yeah, later possibly we deal with this blue pen. This is a kind of classic common version of sketching and preparation, a drawing of a drawing, especially in animation. But now we focus on our work with the proportions of the head and face. Okay, at first I create a line in the middle, and there are different possibilities to do. I want to offer you this normally vector-based tool here for the lines. When you press the U key, you come to the vector-based tools here in your toolbar. And when you click longer, I have to move it here into the center so that you can see it better. Here you can see we have a rectangle, ellipse, and so on. And the last before the last is the line tool. This is what we want to use. I click on, and then I go up to the control bar. Here you can find some settings. At first, I change it to the pixels. Standard version is the path. For this work, I would say the pixels are much more comfortably. And I define the opacity of this tool. This is possibly 40. And then I check, measured by the eyes, the middle here, hold the Shift key, and when I reach my end here nearly, I release the Shift key, the mouse at first, and then the Shift key. Okay, we have a center now. Okay. Then we want to create at first a rough sketch. Okay, for this I create a new layer, Control Shift N, and I call the sketch this new layer, and stay on the blue at first. This is only for better structure here. This coloring beside. Okay. Then I do this really rough and intuitively. Possibly some words about the brushes. You can press the B key to reach this tool you want, in this case the brush B. It's understandable, I hope. Okay, and then we have the settings here above in our control bar. If you want to adjust, yeah, the shortkeys for the sizes, I give you an example. When you are on the Windows PC, you can go to menu Edit. Here you can go to menu point to the menu point keyboard shortcuts below. When you press this, you have to make sure that you are on the tools here. Often we are on the application menus. We want to change the tools. That's what I do. Then drag it down, yeah, until you reach nearly the last quarter. And then we have here the decreasing of the brush size and increasing. And I choose the A, the German Ä, and the German Ö, because there's no conflict with the German keyboard, especially, and the English short keys. If you want to change in your way, you click one time here, press the key you want, and then you say accept, and then you say okay. Okay, I go to cancel because everything is fine here. And when I'm on the brush tip, I can press my keys here. This is smaller, and this is bigger, 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 bigger. Okay. For our work, I use only the standard hard and round brush tip. You can change it here above in the control bar on the left. And you can find it possibly in the recent ones or in your case, in the general. Yeah, yes, often a mixture by version with the German terms, but this is round and soft. And this is round and hard. And if you want to have it a little bit softer, you can drag it a little bit down. And then you have possibly 94% for the hardness. Okay, I click here in the empty space, and then we are out of. If you want to change the opacity of your brush, you can only press on your numbers on your keyboard, the 2 possibly, for example, and then we are on the 20. When you press 5, we are on the 50, 7, and so on. I stay here for our work on 20 and activate for my simple, I'll bring it into the camera here, tablet, the brush settings. This is for the opacity. That means the pressure controls the opacity of your pen. And here's for the size the same. If you want, if you have, you can activate it. Have means if you work nearly with the same stuff as me. Okay, I'm on the new layer. I'm on the brush. I do this really soft. That means at first a kind of random shape, not really random, but yeah, really rough, a little bit too much stretched in this case. This is normally my beginning. When you use other examples, you start with a circle and a part for the jaw and the mouth part below. I bring it a little bit down here because the position is not the best. And then we deal at first with the proportions in itself. The proportions in itself, I meant with this the width in ratio to the height. The ratio is in between width and height, 2 parts to 3 parts. I make an example here really exact and slow. I zoom a little bit in and create at first a selection here with this tool. This is the M key if you want to use a short key. And then I change to the ratio, fixed ratio, and choose 1:1 to explain the perfect proportion of the entire head in the front view. I use this here, for example. Go on another layer, but don't rename because, yeah, this is a little bit confusing when I spend too much time in between. Okay, then I fill the stroke here based on this selection. I go to menu Edit, Stroke. Here I decide to use, I would say, for the small one, yeah, possibly 8 pixels. I use the foreground color. and say OK, and then I have this square here. The best possibility, in my opinion, to duplicate a layer is the next shortcut called Control J on your keyboard. So I duplicate the square here and move it beside by holding the Shift key. So you limit the movement only sideward. Then I find the best position. This is this. This is this. Sorry for scattering. I merge this layer down now by pressing Control E. I repeat, Control E. And then I duplicate it again. Control J. And I want to move it now, the duplication. This is the V key. And you reach this move tool here above in the toolbar. Then I move it down by holding the Shift key. Now we have two parts to two parts for width and height. And then I duplicate it again. Control J, move tool, holding the Shift key, drag it down. This is the ideal proportion of our head in the front view. It seems a little bit too much stretch, but when we bring in the shape, you can understand, I think. I press 2 times Control E for merging down. You can see this is now on a separate layer. I reduce a little bit the opacity here above in my layer window. I go to 60 for the reduction. And I duplicate it to check it on our giantly original version here in the center. This is what I do now. Control J again. And I hide this duplication at first. Then we want to check how it works in connection with our shape of a head. For this, I prefer often to use a kind of warm dark brown for my kind of pencil color. I go into the foreground color. That means I change it here by using this curvy arrow. Go into the foreground color with one click. And then now I prefer again to use numbers for. I often use normally I use the CMYK numbers. Later we talk about 60, 80, 100 for the brown, and 40 to make it a little bit dark. This is the black part here. Okay, then I go back to my pen and check the brush settings, and then I create a rough drawing here in this structure on a new layer, Control-Shift-N, and I do it. Here inside, okay, we can increase the opacity to 40. And here you can see how's the appearance now for the entire head inside. And now it's more believable that this is the ratio really for a realistic head. Yes, the jawbone angles are not so perfect here in my sketch, but to show the proportions, it works, I would say. Okay, that leads us to the remark that we know that we have here for the proportion 2 parts. And I do the same on the next layer to turn it to a 90 degree in the next step. 3 parts. And then I do it by pressing Control T for free transformation. I repeat, Control T, free transformation. And now you have this control bar here in this appearance above. And then I go into the angle here and bring into minus 90 degree, press the Enter key, and move up this information of the 3 parts. Okay. Then I check the entire view and let us go back to our sketching here in the center. And before I said we want to test our individual shape of the first sketch with this proportion of the 2 parts to 3 parts. That's why I move it. This duplication here directly in the center. Try to place it in the center again here of the face and press the Ctrl T to increase above and below. And you can see often it works individually that we reach nearly, sometimes nearly perfectly, this proportion. You can see it works here. I reduce at first the opacity and then I hide it. But before I mark this with a new color, this is orange here for the proportion. Okay, let us go into the rough sketch here in the center. And at first, the measurement or the position of the eyes, when I take off my glasses, you can see possibly on my head without hair that this eye level is directly in the middle. This is often a mistake for the beginners that we bring it too much up because possibly we measure this as an entire shape here with a shadow under the eyebrows. And another reason is possibly that every meaning here is here in this face area. And yeah, in this connection, we would say, boy, this is more space. I don't know what the reason is perfectly, but the truth is the line has to be directly into the center. Okay, I want to offer you a nice possibility to arrange guides, own guides, perfectly here for our face proportion. For this, I create, yes, a new layer. And don't forget to press in between Ctrl S for saving. I go to my favorite tool from before. This is the U key and this vector-based tool. And I create one line horizontally. Here it comes. This is it. Here we have a lot of measurement and I make a mistake. I want to have this in blue. That's why I go back, Ctrl Z and X. The X key means that we change the colors here for fore and background. Okay, and I repeat my process. I do this really long here because we put a lot of measures here on. Okay, I move it up. And then I duplicate this 2 times. You can see it here in my reduced layer window. I press 2 times, Ctrl J, Ctrl J, Ctrl J. Then I move down the last duplication by holding the Shift key again and place it directly at the end here on the shin. We can check this with our rectangle here. Yeah, nearly. Okay, I stay on and I make it more accurate. Bring it a little bit more down. Okay, then I hide this part here. And now we want to bring the line here in our order of lines, horizontal lines, directly into the middle. For this process, we select all layers here. And I hold the Shift key to do this. Now all these line layers are selected. Automatically, I have this align tools here above. In my case, I have to go into the 3 points. And for the spreading of the lines or arrangement, I press the second one in the center here of the third version. And then I have this perfectly in the center now. Okay. I click into the empty space and press Ctrl E for merge down, if you want to do. And now I have these lines on one layer. Okay. To have a remark beside, I do this a little bit like in technical drawing. but not perfectly. Here I make a double-headed arrow and write, sorry, 1/2 and 1/2 on. And for this, I want to offer you a second version to draw straight lines here in Photoshop. Press the B key for the brush tool and find the position you want and hold the Shift key and drag down your brush tip. But in this case, it's for me too much. I want to reduce here the opacity, possibly to 60. I reduce my brush tip by pressing the German A key and do it again here. Okay, then I create the kind of technical drawing view here with two arrows below and above. And then I make the remark beside that this is 1/2 and this is the other one. Okay, so we can go on. And for my sketch, I want to go back to my sketch layer. Here it is. Now I mark this with a red color beside so I can find better. And then we do this with the blue pen again, increasing a little bit the brush opacity. And then I make a sketch of two eyes here, really soft at first. Later we do the step by step. My idea is often in teaching that I say, okay, make it so soft as possible and then use it as a sculpting mask. So refine it step by step so that you can start with the entire shape and go step by step into the detail. Okay, then we have here our eyebrows, and this measure is intuitively. But then we use this measure to come to the next measures. Okay, that means you need a new layer as always. You can see there are no pupils and no iris part. Okay, I go up here in my layer order, press Ctrl-Shift-N for a new layer. Then I go to my U key to create a new line. And go through the eyebrows, a little bit shorter than before. Correct a little bit the position. For this, I go back to the Move tool and use the arrow keys on my keyboard. Okay. And now we go on and we repeat the same process as before. Important is the nose tip. When I take off my glasses again and go to a red pen here as an example, when you imagine, or yes, imagine is the right word. This is our entire measure. And then we have the half of this entire measure from eyebrows to chin. Then we have the half here. This has to work nearly exactly in each face, but not perfectly exactly. Then we are not individual persons if this really worked totally exactly. Okay, we are on the new layer. We have this new line. We duplicate this 2 times. Control J, Control J. Then I drag down one of them perfectly on the line on the shin. This is a little bit stupid because I have to delete this in the next moment, but for the explanation and for the function, I would say it works really cool. Then we select all these 3 layers again, go to our Align and Arrange tools and choose the same as before. And this is the position of our nose. Okay, I merge it down by pressing Ctrl E. And then M key for rectangle selection tool, and I go back to my standard version normal selection and select not perfectly, but so that I can delete this part and press the delete key or the backspace key. And Control D for deselect. I repeat, Control D for deselect. Control S for saving. Okay, we can go on with our face here. I zoom a little bit in by using the Control Plus version. I repeat again, Control Plus. Okay. Later we deal a little bit with the shapes and refining, but at first we do this really rough and sketchy here. Our main topic has to be the proportions. Okay. This is possibly our nose for our character here. I think we create a female one. There are a lot of other lines that we can use now for this perfect measurement. Yes, this is possibly a remark that we need. This is not our construction for each portrait or whatever, but for the, yeah, learning and testing, I think it's really cool and helpful. Okay, let us go. Let us go back to the lines here. I create. Sorry, I merged down at first my nose here. Ah, same mistake as always. Okay, it's directly on this layer, but I stay on it. I hope it's no problem. Okay. I go up here to my layers, check it, create a new one, and go back to my line tool by pressing the U key. And take the inner part. That means, yeah, where the teardrops are falling here. This is not perfectly the width of the nose, but as an orientation, it works. Okay, I do here one time on a new layer, in my version, drag it down to the shin, duplicate this layer, Control J, move this layer, this duplicated one, V key for move tool, hold the shift key, and move it beside. And then I use the keys to correct a little bit. Okay, but this is really, really, really individual. Think about, often the nose is wider. In my case, it's wider. You can go over this, but it works a little bit as an orientation. More important are the next two lines. I go back to my sketch and bring in now the iris part and a rough sketching of the pupils inside, and drag down the lines directly from the middle. No concentration, lecturer. I go to the new layer, use another tool, and do the same again. Here it comes. Then I duplicate. This is directly in the center of the pupil. Duplicate this, move it beside by holding the shift key. Try to find the same measures. And now I have the position of my mouth. Okay. Then I merge it down. The layers that I create here and here. And press Control E. Here it comes. Okay, Control S for saving. And then we need the position of the mouth again. Looks nearly the same as before. Okay, before I go on, I bring the measurement here on. Means. Here it comes. Too much, I reduce. One arrow, next arrowhead. Again. This was from before here, our eyebrow to shin. And in the center is a nose tip ending here that lies on 1/2, 1/2. And then we do the same for the nose and chin area. For this again, a new layer, Control-Shift-N. Then I create, not really necessary line here with our U key directly on the position of the nose. A little bit shorter. Here it comes. Then I duplicate it 2 times, Control-J, Control-J. Then I drag the last copy down by holding the Shift key. And select all these 3 layers and arrange them perfectly. Then I have to delete above and below. It's duplicated, not necessary. That's why I go directly into the layers here and press the delete key. And the next delete key has to be here. And then we have only one in the center. This is what I merge down now onto the layer with the lines. Here we have a lot of. Okay, and here again. Control S for saving in between. The new part is that we bring the entire mouth here on this construction, not in the center here. That means when I use my red pen again, it has to be here under the lower part of the lip. Okay, I go to my blue pen on and my sketch layer here, zoom into, and place the mouth on this construction of lines. And these lines limit the mouth beside, but often the mouth is smaller than. That's why I don't reach it here. I do this. I stay inside a little bit. Okay, I zoom out. And then our last step is the position of the ears. When I presentate this with my skinhead, I mark the nose tip and the eyebrows and go a little bit sideward. You can see the ears are perfectly sometimes in between, and we can do it here too. And then we do some sketchy refining, and then our video ends for today here. But I have to reduce my opacity again. Okay, here comes the ears in between. I reduce the width of the entire face. And you can see all the time I do this really sketchy, rough, a lot of lines, so that you can correct this all the time in a relaxed way. Nothing has to be perfect in the first step. Okay, I try to find the positions where the shape changes the direction. So it helps to define in the next step the best shape and clear defined shape, especially for your work. You can see it looks not so female, but in our refining unit, the next one, we do it step by step. I add the neck a little bit smaller than the jawbone angle here. And yes, final remark, if you want to check the width of your head, you can do the following. You can count the eyes. It has to be one eye in between, and it has to be on each side, one eye, two. Here, it's possibly too small, but I think it seems not too small. But when you have a look here on my face, and when I take this red pen again, when I squash it directly beside my eye, then it's not enough space. But when I use the bone here over my ear, then you can see there's a lot of space in between the pen and my eye. So we can say we have a width of 5 eyes. Okay. And then in the next unit, we deal a little bit with the measures here again, and then we come to the refining. Okay. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video. Goodbye. See you.